The drought-stricken plains of Wyoming Territory shimmered under the merciless August sun of 1878 as Olivia Vaughn clutched her father's worn pocket watch, the only possession of value she had left in the world. Her mother's funeral had been yesterday a simple, solemn affair attended by the few neighbors who hadn't yet abandoned their homesteads to the unforgiving elements. Now, at 22 years old, Olivia stood alone on the porch of the cabin that had been her home for the past 5 years, since her family had ventured west from Pennsylvania with dreams as vast as the prairie sky. Inside the cabin, everything of worth had been packed into a single carpet bag that rested at her feet. The rest would stay behind, payment to the bank that held the deed to the failed farm. Her father had died 2 years prior in a terrible accident, crushed beneath a wagon when the wheel broke on the rutted road to Sweetwater. Her mother had held on, fighting to keep their small plot of land productive despite the dry seasons, but consumption had finally claimed her, leaving Olivia with nothing but debts and the letter in her pocket. The letter was from her mother's distant cousin in the town of Whispering Pines, some 80 miles north. A respectable woman who ran a dress shop and had, upon hearing of Olivia's circumstances, offered her a position and a place to stay until she could establish herself. It was an act of charity, nothing more, but it was all Olivia had. The stagecoach wasn't due to pass through for another 3 days, but Olivia couldn't bear to stay in the silent cabin any longer. With her carpet bag in one hand and a small bundle of food in the other, she locked the door for the final time and began walking down the dusty road that led toward town. By midday, the sun was high, and sweat dampened the collar of her simple blue dress. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and the water in her canteen was already half gone. Still, she pressed on, grateful that at least the day was windless, sparing her from the dust storms that often plagued the territory. When she heard the rumble of approaching hooves and wagon wheels, Olivia stepped to the side of the road, waiting to see if it might be someone heading to town who would offer her a ride. The sound grew louder, and soon a large wagon came into view, pulled by 4 strong horses. At the reins sat a broad-shouldered man, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. As the wagon drew closer, the man slowed his team, looking down at Olivia with curiosity. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps in his late 20s, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. "Afternoon, miss," he called, tipping his hat. "You're a long way from anywhere," Olivia nodded, squinting up at him. "I'm headed to town." "That's 15 miles yet," he said, frowning. "You planning to walk all that way in this heat?" "I don't have much choice," she replied honestly. The man studied her for a moment, taking in her simple dress and the small bag at her feet. "I'm heading that way myself. Would you care for a ride?" Olivia hesitated. Her mother had always cautioned her about accepting offers from strangers, especially men, but the prospect of walking another 15 miles in the blistering heat was daunting. "I'd be most grateful," she finally said, "if it's not too much trouble." The man smiled, revealing straight white teeth. "No trouble at all. Name's Xander Buckley. I own the Triple B Ranch north of town." "Olivia Vaughn," she replied, accepting his outstretched hand as he helped her up onto the wagon seat. His hand was calloused but gentle, and she couldn't help noticing the clean scent of his shirt, soap, and sunshine. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Vaughn," he said, releasing her hand and taking up the reins again. With a click of his tongue, he set the horses in motion. "What brings you out this way alone?" Olivia considered how much to share with this stranger, but something in his straightforward manner encouraged honesty. "I'm leaving our homestead. My mother passed yesterday, and the bank is taking the land for debts." Xander's expression sobered immediately. "I'm mighty sorry to hear that. Were you headed somewhere in particular?" "To Whispering Pines," she explained. "My mother's cousin has offered me work in her dress shop." He nodded. "That's a good 2 days' journey by stagecoach from town. When are you set to leave?" "The coach doesn't come through for another 3 days. Where will you stay until then?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Olivia looked down at her hands, embarrassment washing over her. "I haven't quite figured that out yet. Perhaps there's a boarding house in town that might extend credit until I can earn some wages." Xander was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the road ahead. My sister runs a small boarding house on the edge of town. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. I'm sure she'd be happy to have you stay until the coach comes. That's very kind, Olivia said, but I couldn't accept charity. I have no way to pay her right now. It wouldn't be charity, Xander assured her. Martha's always looking for help with the cooking and cleaning. You could work for your room and board for the few days you're there. Relief flooded through Olivia at the sensible suggestion. That would be perfect, Mr. Buckley. Thank you. Xander, please, he said with a small smile. Mr. Buckley was my father, and a much more serious man than I'll ever be. As the wagon continued toward town, Olivia found herself studying her companion from the corner of her eye. Xander Buckley was undeniably handsome, with broad shoulders and strong hands that handled the reins with easy confidence. But it was the kindness in his eyes that drew her attention, most a genuine warmth that made her feel surprisingly at ease despite her circumstances. The Triple B Ranch, she said after a while. Is it a large operation? Xander nodded, pride evident in his voice. Large enough. My father started with just 50 acres and a dozen head of cattle 20 years ago. Now we run close to 1,000 head on 15,000 acres. Olivia's eyes widened. That's impressive. It's good land, he said modestly. Good water too, which makes all the difference out here. We've been lucky. I don't believe luck has much to do with it, Olivia observed, not with the calluses on your hands. Xander laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed to brighten the air around them. You're right about that. Ranching is hard work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. My father always said the same about farming, she said softly. Even when the crops failed and the rains didn't come, he never wanted to go back east. The West gets in your blood, Xander agreed. It's not an easy life, but there's something about the freedom of it, the space to breathe and build something of your own. They fell into comfortable conversation as the wagon rolled on, Xander pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the area. Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in months, momentarily forgetting the grief and uncertainty that had been her constant companions. As they crested a hill, the town of Sweetwater came into view below them, a collection of wooden buildings straddling the main road, with a church steeple rising above the rest. It wasn't much, but to Olivia, who had spent most of the last 5 years on the isolated homestead, it represented civilization and possibility. Xander guided the wagon down the hill and along the main street, nodding greetings to people they passed. It was clear from the respectful nods and warm hellos he received that Xander Buckley was well regarded in the community. At the far end of town, he turned the wagon down a side street and pulled up in front of a neat 2-story house with a small sign above the porch that read Buckley Boarding House. Here we are, he said, setting the brake and jumping down from the wagon. He came around to Olivia's side and offered his hand to help her down. Martha should be inside. She makes the best apple pie in the territory, so if we're lucky, there might still be some left from yesterday. As if on cue, the front door opened and a woman stepped out onto the porch. She was younger than Olivia had expected, perhaps only a few years older than herself, with the same storm-gray eyes as her brother and a welcoming smile. Xander, I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow, she called, then noticed Olivia. And you've brought company. Martha, this is Miss Olivia Vaughn, Xander said as he helped Olivia with her bag. Miss Vaughn, my sister Martha Buckley. Martha hurried down the steps to greet them, her smile warm and genuine. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Vaughn. Olivia, please, she replied, immediately taking a liking to the other woman's forthright manner. Your brother has been kind enough to offer me a ride to town. Miss Vaughn has had some difficult times, Xander explained quietly to his sister. Her mother just passed, and she's waiting for the stagecoach to Whispering Pines. I thought perhaps she could stay here until then, maybe help out in exchange for room and board. Understanding dawned in Martha's eyes, and she nodded immediately. Of course. We always have room for a friend in need. She linked her arm through Olivia's. Come inside, dear, you must be exhausted. I'll show you to a room where you can rest, and then perhaps you join us for supper. Relief and gratitude washed over Olivia. Thank you. I'd be happy to help with the cooking or cleaning, whatever you need. We'll sort all that out later, Martha assured her. For now, let's get you settled. Xander retrieved Olivia's carpet bag from the wagon. I've got some business to attend to in town, but I'll be back for supper if that's all right, Martha waved a hand dismissively. As if you need an invitation to eat at your own family's table. Go on then, we'll see you later. As Martha led Olivia into the boarding house, Olivia couldn't help glancing back over her shoulder. Xander stood beside his wagon, watching them go, and when their eyes met, he tipped his hat with a small smile that warmed her more than it should have. The room Martha showed her to was small but spotlessly clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a chair by the window that overlooked a small garden. After the harshness of the day, the simple comfort brought tears to Olivia's eyes. "It's perfect," she said, setting her bag down. "I can't thank you enough for your kindness." Martha squeezed her hand. "No thanks needed. We've all had our share of hard times out here. Rest a bit and I'll call you when supper's ready." Left alone, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, the events of the past days catching up to her. For the first time since her mother's passing, she allowed herself to cry, the tears flowing freely as she clutched the pocket watch that was her only inheritance. When she had composed herself, she washed her face in the basin and changed into the cleanest of her 3 dresses, a simple brown cotton that had seen better days, but was at least free of dust from the road. She was braiding her chestnut hair when a knock came at the door. "Supper's nearly ready," Martha called. "There's fresh water in the kitchen if you'd like to wash up." In the kitchen, Olivia found Martha tending to several pots on the large cast iron stove. The room was warm and fragrant with the smell of cooking meat and baking bread. "Is there anything I can help with?" Olivia asked. Martha smiled. "You could set the table if you'd like. Plates are in that cupboard there and silverware in the drawer below it." As Olivia arranged the plates and cutlery on the large wooden table, she asked, "Are there other boarders I should set places for?" "Just one at present," Martha replied. "Mr. Peterson, the new schoolmaster. He usually takes supper in his room, though. He's working on lesson plans for the new school term." The front door opened, and Xander's voice called out, "Something smells mighty good in here." He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hat in his hands and his hair slightly damp as though he'd stopped to wash up before arriving. He'd changed into a clean shirt as well, Olivia noticed. "Just in time," Martha said, nodding toward a covered pot. "Take that to the table, would you?" Supper was a simple but hearty affair: beef stew, fresh bread, and the promised apple pie for dessert. The conversation flowed easily, with Martha sharing stories about the boarding house and the town, and Xander occasionally interjecting with his own observations. Both siblings went out of their way to include Olivia, asking about her life before coming west and her plans for the future, but carefully avoiding any mentions that might stir up fresh grief. As they finished the last of the pie, Martha glanced at the clock on the wall. "I promised Mrs. Collins I'd stop by this evening. Her youngest has been ill, and I thought I'd bring her some of that willow bark tea that helped when you had that fever last winter, Xander." Before Olivia could offer to accompany her, Martha added, "I shouldn't be too long, but perhaps you two could handle the washing up." "I'm sure Olivia would appreciate hearing more about what to expect in Whispering Pines, since you make deliveries there occasionally, Xander." With that, Martha gathered her shawl and a small basket, leaving Olivia and Xander alone in the kitchen. "Your sister is very kind," Olivia said as she began collecting the dishes. Xander nodded, rolling up his sleeves to help with the washing. "She has a good heart. After our mother died, she took over running the house, even though she was just 16. She could have married any number of fellows by now, but she says she's not in any rush." "How long has she had the boarding house?" Olivia asked, bringing the stack of dishes to the wash basin where Xander was pumping water. "About 3 years now. Our father passed on, and the old house was too big for just the 2 of us, with me spending most of my time at the ranch, so we decided to make it useful." He reached for the soap. "I'll wash if you'll dry." They worked together in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Xander washing each dish thoroughly before handing it to Olivia to dry with a clean cloth. "Tell me about Whispering Pines," she said eventually. "What kind of place is it?" Xander considered the question as he scrubbed a particularly stubborn pot. It's growing fast. Bigger than Sweetwater already. They've got a proper hotel, a bank, even a small theater for traveling shows. Your cousin's dress shop must do well there. There are enough folks with money to spend on such things. That's encouraging, Olivia said. I know a little about sewing, but not enough to be truly skilled at it. I hope I won't disappoint her. I'm sure you'll do fine, Xander assured her. From what I've seen, you're not afraid of hard work, and that's more than half the battle out here. Olivia smiled at the compliment. My father always said much the same thing. He believed anyone could learn a skill if they applied themselves diligently enough. Your father sounds like a wise man, Xander observed, handing her the last of the clean dishes. What brought your family out west, dreams of land? Olivia replied, carefully drying the pot. My father was the youngest son of a farmer in Pennsylvania. With 3 older brothers, there wasn't enough land to divide, so he decided to seek his fortune elsewhere. She paused, remembering. He read about the Homestead Act in a newspaper and couldn't stop talking about it. 160 acres, free and clear, just for working the land. It sounded like paradise, Xander nodded. It does sound that way, doesn't it? But they don't mention the droughts or the hailstorms or the 1,000 other ways the West tries to break a man. No, Olivia agreed softly, they don't mention those things. Xander dried his hands on a towel, his expression thoughtful. I don't mean to discourage you, but Whispering Pines isn't paradise either. It has its share of troubles like any frontier town. I'm not looking for paradise, Olivia said, hanging the drying cloth over a rail. Just a chance to make my own way. Xander studied her face for a moment, then nodded with approval. That's the right attitude out here. He glanced out the window at the deepening twilight. It's a fine evening. Would you care to sit on the porch for a while? The air's cooler now, and the view of the stars is something special. The porch wrapped around 2 sides of the boarding house, with several chairs positioned to catch the evening breeze. Olivia sat in one of these, while Xander leaned against the railing across from her. Thank you again for your help today, she said. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along. You'd have managed, he replied with confidence. You strike me as a woman who finds a way to overcome obstacles. Olivia wasn't used to such direct compliments, especially from a man she'd just met. Yet there was nothing presumptuous in Xander's manner, just a straightforward appreciation that made her cheeks warm in the darkness. I try, she said simply, though today tested my resolve more than most. They talked as the stars emerged above them, Xander telling her about the growth of his ranch and the challenges of cattle ranching in the territory. Olivia found herself sharing stories of her mother's garden, her father's determination to make the farm succeed despite the odds, and her own small triumphs and disappointments. It was surprisingly easy to talk to him, and Olivia felt a connection forming between them that both comforted and unsettled her. She reminded herself that in 3 days she would be leaving for Whispering Pines, likely never to see Xander Buckley again. When Martha returned from her visit, she found them still on the porch, deep in conversation. She excused herself to prepare for bed, leaving them with a knowing smile that made Olivia blush. I should turn in as well, Olivia said, rising from her chair. It's been a long day. Xander stood, towering over her in the moonlight. Of course, I didn't mean to keep you up so late. You didn't, she assured him. I've enjoyed our conversation. He smiled down at her, and for a breathless moment, Olivia thought he might reach for her hand. Instead, he simply nodded. Sleep well, Miss Vaughn. I'll see you in the morning before I head back to the ranch. Good night, Xander, she replied, using his first name for the first time. It felt right on her lips, as though they'd known each other much longer than a single day. The next morning, Olivia woke early, determined to make herself useful. She found Martha already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Good morning, Martha greeted her cheerfully. I hope you slept well, better than I have in weeks, Olivia admitted. What can I do to help? Together, they prepared a hearty breakfast of hot cakes, bacon, and strong coffee. As they worked, Martha explained the routine of the boarding house, which rooms needed cleaning when meals were served, and other daily tasks. I generally do the cooking and the bookkeeping myself, Martha said as she flipped a hot cake. But having help with the cleaning and laundry would be a blessing. Mrs. Henderson usually comes in twice a week to help, but her daughter just had a baby, so she's been away. I'm happy to do whatever is needed, Olivia assured her. They were setting the table when Xander arrived, looking fresh despite the early hour. He greeted them both with a warm smile, his eyes lingering on Olivia perhaps a moment longer than necessary. Over breakfast, he explained that he needed to return to the ranch but would be back in town the following day for a meeting with the cattle broker. I'd be happy to show you around town a bit, he offered Olivia. If you're not too busy helping Martha, that is. Before Olivia could respond, Martha waved a hand dismissively. I can spare her for an afternoon. It would do her good to see more of Sweetwater than just my boarding house. And so it was decided. Xander departed after breakfast with a promise to return the next day, and Olivia threw herself into helping Martha with the daily chores. They stripped and remade beds, swept and mopped floors, and spent the afternoon doing laundry, a task that left them both hot and tired but satisfied with their accomplishments. That evening, after a simple supper, Martha insisted on teaching Olivia how to play checkers, a game they enjoyed until the light grew too dim to see the board clearly. Xander mentioned you lost your mother recently, Martha said gently as they put the game away. I'm very sorry. It's not an easy thing to bear, Olivia nodded, touched by the other woman's empathy. Thank you, it still doesn't feel quite real some moments. I was 15 when our mother passed, Martha shared. Some days I still expect to see her when I walk into a room. Does it get easier? Olivia asked softly. Martha considered the question. The sharpness fades, but the missing doesn't. You just learn to carry it differently. She reached across the table and squeezed Olivia's hand. But you're not alone, even if it feels that way sometimes. The simple kindness of the gesture brought tears to Olivia's eyes. Your family has been so good to me. I don't know how to repay such generosity. There's no debt to repay, Martha assured her, though I will say it's nice to have another woman to talk to. And Xander seems to enjoy your company as well. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. He's been very kind. My brother is many things, but merely kind isn't one of them, Martha said with a knowing smile. I haven't seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you in a very long time. Not knowing how to respond to such a direct observation, Olivia changed the subject, asking Martha about her plans for the boarding house. But later, lying in bed, she found herself thinking about Xander's gray eyes and the way they crinkled at the corners when he smiled. The next day dawned clear and bright. Olivia helped Martha with the morning chores, then changed into her best dress, a navy blue cotton with white piping that had once belonged to her mother and had been altered to fit her smaller frame. Martha nodded approvingly when she came downstairs. You look lovely. That color suits you. Xander arrived just after noon, his wagon traded for a handsome chestnut gelding. He too had made an effort with his appearance, wearing a clean white shirt and a vest that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. Ready to see the metropolis of Sweetwater? He asked with a grin as he helped Olivia up onto the horse behind him. Lead on, she replied, hesitantly placing her hands on his waist as the horse began to move. Sweetwater was small but growing, with a main street lined with wooden buildings housing various businesses. Xander pointed out the general store, the bank, the small hotel, and the sheriff's office as they rode through town. And that's the saloon, he said, nodding toward a two-story building with swinging doors. Best avoided by respectable ladies, though the owner's wife, Mrs. Daniels, is one of the kindest souls in the territory. They stopped at the general store, where Xander helped Olivia down from the horse. Inside, he introduced her to the proprietor, Mr. Harrison, a friendly man with spectacles who insisted on showing her the latest shipment of fabrics that had just arrived from back east. Your cousin's shop in Whispering Pines probably has finer selections, Mr. Harrison admitted, but we try to keep up with the fashions as best we can out here. After the general store, they visited the small church on the edge of town, where Xander introduced Olivia to Reverend Taylor and his wife, who immediately invited her to join them for Sunday services. The afternoon passed quickly, with Xander seeming to know everyone in town and everyone eager to meet the newcomer. By the time they stopped for refreshment at the small café run by a French immigrant named Monsieur Lefebvre, Olivia's head was spinning with new names and faces. "Everyone has been so welcoming," she said as they shared a pot of coffee and a slice of Monsieur Lefebvre's famous cherry tart. "It's hard to believe I only arrived yesterday." Xander smiled. "Folks out here understand the importance of community. Life's hard enough without facing it alone." As they made their way back to the boarding house, Olivia found herself wishing the day didn't have to end. Xander's company was easy and comfortable, his conversation intelligent without being condescending, and his occasional touches a hand at her elbow, fingers brushing as he helped her mount the horse sent unexpected shivers through her. Back at the boarding house, Martha was waiting on the porch with a telegram in hand. "This came for you while you were out," she told Olivia, her expression concerned. Olivia took the paper with trembling fingers. She had never received a telegram before, and the only people who knew where she was would be, "It's from my cousin in Whispering Pines," she confirmed after reading the brief message. Her heart sank as she read it aloud. "Regret to inform you position no longer available. Stop dress shop closing due to husband's illness. Stop letter follows with details. Stop sincere apologies. Stop Elizabeth." Olivia stared at the paper, her carefully laid plans crumbling before her eyes. "I don't understand. How can the position be gone? What am I supposed to do now?" Martha guided her gently to a chair on the porch. "You'll stay here until you figure things out. There's no rush for you to leave." "But I can't impose on your kindness indefinitely," Olivia protested. "And without a position waiting. Sweetwater could use a seamstress," Xander suggested. "Mr. Harrison was just saying yesterday how much business he loses by having to send people to Whispering Pines for anything more complicated than basic alterations." Olivia shook her head. "I'm not skilled enough to start my own business, and even if I were, I have no money for supplies, for rent, for anything." She blinked back tears of frustration. "I thought I had it all figured out." "The West has a way of changing our plans," Xander said quietly. "But sometimes those changes lead us to better paths than we could have imagined." Martha nodded in agreement. "Xander's right, and as for staying here, we can work something out. The boarding house could use a permanent helper, especially with winter coming and more travelers likely to need rooms." Olivia looked between the siblings, overwhelmed by their generosity. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it," Martha urged. "Nothing has to be decided today." That evening, after supper, Xander asked Olivia if she would walk with him a while. The night was clear, with a full moon illuminating the dirt road that led out of town. "I wanted to talk to you privately," he said as they strolled side by side. "About what happened today." "The telegram," Olivia said with a sigh. "It changes everything." Xander nodded, his expression serious. "It does, but perhaps for the better." Olivia looked up at him, puzzled. "How can losing my only prospect be for the better?" Xander stopped walking and turned to face her. "Because it gives you a reason to stay here in Sweetwater." The intensity in his eyes made Olivia's heart beat faster. "Xander, please hear me out," he interrupted gently. "I know we've only known each other for 2 days, but I feel a connection with you that I can't explain. It's as if I've been waiting for you without knowing it." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "I've felt it too," she admitted softly, "but it's so sudden, so unexpected." "Some things are meant to be sudden," he said, taking her hand. "My father always said he knew the moment he saw my mother that she was the one for him. I never understood what he meant until yesterday when I saw you standing by the side of the road." Olivia's mind whirled with conflicting emotions: hope, fear, longing, and a deep, inexplicable certainty that this man was somehow important to her future. "What are you saying, Xander?" "I'm saying that I'd like a chance to court you properly, Olivia, to see if what I feel, what I think we both feel, might grow into something lasting." His voice was steady, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm not asking for promises yet, just time." Olivia's practical side urged caution, but her heart responded to the sincerity in his voice. "I would like that too," she said finally, "but there are practical considerations. I can't be dependent on your sister's charity indefinitely." "You won't be," Xander assured her. "Martha meant what she said about needing help at the boarding house, and if you're interested in sewing, I've seen enough of your mending to know you have skill. Perhaps not enough yet to open your own shop, but skills can be developed with practice." He squeezed her hand gently. All I'm asking is that you consider staying, at least for a while. Give us a chance. In the moonlight, with Xander's hand warm around hers and his eyes full of promise, it was hard for Olivia to remember all the reasons why such a rapid attachment was unwise. Yet she couldn't deny the rightness she felt in his presence, as though some part of her had recognized him instantly. "I'll stay," she said at last, "for now, and we'll see what happens." The smile that broke across Xander's face was worth any uncertainty. "That's all I ask," he said. And then, with a questioning look that gave her every opportunity to pull away, he bent his head and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, brief but full of promise, and when it ended, Olivia felt as though something fundamental had shifted in her world. They walked back to the boarding house hand in hand, talking of small things, both aware that something significant had changed between them. The following days settled into a pattern. Olivia helped Martha with the boarding house during the day, learning the routines and gradually taking on more responsibility. In the evenings, if Xander was in town, the three of them would share supper and conversation, sometimes joined by one or two of the boarders. On Sundays, they attended services at the small church together, with Xander driving them in his wagon. Olivia was introduced to more of the townspeople, including several who expressed interest in her sewing abilities after seeing the alterations she'd made to one of Martha's dresses. 2 weeks after her arrival in Sweetwater, Mr. Harrison from the general store approached her after church with a proposition. "My wife has been saying for years that we should offer more in the way of sewing services," he explained. "But neither of us has the skill for anything beyond basic repairs. If you're interested, we could set up a corner of the store for you to work from, taking orders for more complex items. We'd provide the space and materials and split the profits fairly." It was an unexpected opportunity, and Olivia looked to Xander and Martha for guidance. Both encouraged her to accept. "It's perfect," Martha said later as they sat on the porch. "You can still help me at the boarding house when needed, but this gives you a chance to develop your skills and earn your own money." Olivia agreed, and within the week, a small workspace was set up in the back corner of the general store, with a sign announcing custom sewing and alterations by Miss Vaughn. As autumn deepened toward winter, Olivia's little business began to thrive. Word spread quickly in the small community, and soon she had a steady stream of customers bringing everything from torn trousers to wedding dresses in need of alteration. Her relationship with Xander deepened as well. He courted her with a gentle persistence that spoke of his respect for her independence while making his own feelings clear. They rode together on his days in town, shared meals with Martha and the boarders, and sometimes just sat on the porch talking until the stars were thick overhead. By Christmas, Olivia had saved enough from her sewing work to rent a small room above the general store, though Martha insisted she was welcome to stay at the boarding house as long as she wished. "It's not that I want to leave," Olivia explained. "But I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet, even if," she blushed, not finishing the thought. Martha smiled knowingly. "Even if you end up not standing alone for long," Olivia's blush deepened. "Xander hasn't asked me anything formal yet." "He will," Martha predicted confidently. "My brother may take his time to be sure, but once he knows his mind, he doesn't hesitate." True to Martha's prediction, on a cold January evening, Xander invited Olivia for a drive in his sleigh. Wrapped in warm blankets, they glided over the snow-covered landscape, the only sound the jingling of the sleigh bells and the soft fall of the horses' hooves. Xander guided the sleigh to a hilltop overlooking his ranch, where they could see the main house and barns in the distance, smoke rising from the chimneys and lights glowing in the windows. "It's beautiful," Olivia said, taking in the peaceful scene. Xander nodded, his expression both proud and nervous. "It's a good place, a place where a family could be happy." Something in his tone made Olivia turn to look at him. "Xander," he took her gloved hands in his. "Olivia, I've known since the day I met you that you were special. These past months have only confirmed what my heart knew immediately, that you're the woman I want to share my life with." Olivia's heart pounded as he continued. "I love your strength, your determination, your kindness. I love the way you've made a place for yourself here through your own efforts. I love everything about you." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "Olivia Vaughn, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Joy surged through Olivia, bright and overwhelming. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Xander's face lit with happiness, and he pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally parted, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "This was my mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a simple gold band with a single small diamond. "My father gave it to her when they were first married. I'd be honored if you'd wear it." Tears of happiness filled Olivia's eyes as Xander slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's perfect," she said. "I'll treasure it always." Their engagement was announced at Sunday services to the delight of the congregation. Plans were made for a spring wedding, with Martha taking charge of the arrangements with characteristic efficiency. As winter gave way to spring, Olivia divided her time between her sewing work, helping Martha, and preparations for the wedding. Xander made improvements to the ranch house, adding a new room and expanding the garden that had fallen into neglect since his mother's death. The weeks passed in a blur of happiness, and before Olivia knew it, the wedding day arrived the first Saturday in May, with the prairie blooming around them and the sky a perfect blue overhead. The small church was filled to capacity, with nearly everyone in Sweetwater and many from the surrounding ranches in attendance. Martha had decorated the simple space with wildflowers and white ribbons, transforming it into something magical. Olivia wore a dress of her own making, ivory silk that she had saved for months to purchase, with lace at the collar and cuffs that Martha had contributed from her mother's wedding veil. As she walked down the aisle on Reverend Taylor's arm, her eyes locked with Xander's, and the love she saw there banished any last nervousness. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, with traditional vows exchanged and rings blessed. When Reverend Taylor pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that rose from the congregation was enough to make the rafters shake. The celebration continued at the Triple B Ranch, where tables had been set up under the trees and a platform built for dancing. Food was plentiful, music cheerful, and the bride and groom the center of attention as they moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the land, Xander led Olivia away from the festivities to a quiet spot beneath an old cottonwood tree. "Happy, Mrs. Buckley?" he asked, his arms encircling her waist. Olivia leaned back against him, savoring the sound of her new name. "More than I ever thought possible." "I have something for you," Xander said, reaching into his pocket. "A wedding gift." He placed a small wooden box in her hands. Curious, Olivia opened it to find a delicate gold necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "Turn it over," Xander instructed. On the back of the pendant, a single word was engraved. "Treasure." Understanding dawned, and Olivia turned in his arms, her eyes shining with tears. "From the first day." Xander nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "When you told me about having no dowry to bring to a marriage, all I could think was that you were worth more than any material possession. You're my treasure, Olivia. You always will be." "And you're mine," she whispered, rising on tiptoe to kiss him as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky above them. Their life together began that night, in the home that would soon be filled with children's laughter and the warm comfort of shared dreams. The path that had led Olivia to Sweetwater had been marked by loss and uncertainty, but it had brought her to a love deeper and more enduring than she could have imagined, a love that proved, day after day, year after year, that she was indeed the greatest treasure in Xander Buckley's world.